demanding that Egypt free 5 of its journalists. One of them has been detained for more than 5 months. Al Jazeera is expressing disappointment in the way the journalists have been treated, and it is accusing Egyptian authorities of trying to silence the network in any kind of critical coverage. A spokesman says, quote, "We condemn the allegations directed at our staff by Egyptian authorities, which are aiming to stigmatize us and further incite violence against our journalists working on the ground. This is all part of a larger antagonistic campaign against us." End quote. Let's find out more about these journalists and the implications of what's happened to them. Sue Turton is an anchor and senior correspondent for Al Jazeera English, and she joins us now from our London bureau. Sue, thanks for being with us. So 5 Al Jazeera staffers jailed by the current government in Egypt. Is the network able to communicate with them, have access to them at all at this stage?
We haven't had direct access to them, but they obviously have lawyers, and the lawyers do relay back the sort of condition that they are in. We're mostly concerned about Mohammed Fahmy, who is a producer. He's only been with us since September. In fact, he used to work for CNN, and we know that he has a broken shoulder. He had already a bit of a shoulder complaint, but he was apparently transferred to Tora prison, the main prison in Cairo, where he's being held. And some part of that journey, this shoulder seems to have been hit quite badly, and now he has a broken shoulder. And from what we understand, he's having to sleep on a stone floor. That's been going on for 12 days. So real concerns as to his health. We don't know. It's not clear if he's had any medical assistance so far. He's half Canadian.
Right.
The Canadian consulate have been trying to get him some sort of medical assistance, trying to get him to be moved to a hospital, but that's failed so far.
Now, is Al Jazeera getting any information from the Egyptian government about how long these staffers will be held and how their cases will proceed going forward? Is there communication at that level?
There is, and we have obviously, our senior people have been talking to the government, to the main prosecutor's office constantly in Cairo. When they were first arrested, 12 days ago now, we were told that they were being investigated and interrogated. They are routinely interrogated individually about claims of terrorism, colluding with terrorism. Then we were hearing that it was to do with not having the proper accreditation. At the moment, it's quite confusing really as to what they are being blamed for, and indeed why they were arrested. Now, we know, as I'm sure you know, hundreds of journalists over the course of the last few months have been detained. We get the feeling that we're being almost used as a test case by the prosecutor. One, to see how people react to our journalists being locked up, and two, to see whether or not they really feel that they can prosecute us for whatever charge that they bring against us.
And the initial charges you mentioned, essentially being members almost of a terrorist organization, and the Muslim Brotherhood having been designated a terrorist organization a few weeks ago by the current military-backed government. And so is it the feeling within Al Jazeera that network, that your network, is being targeted intentionally by the government because it has aired, in some cases, critical coverage or critical reporting of the current leadership?
Do you know what? It's confusing. I think all of us have aired critical reports to do with what happened in the coup over the summer. I can't think of one channel who hasn't gone out on the streets and talked to people who were involved in that, who were in Rabat Square, where the violent crackdown happened after the coup, and beyond. But we're Al Jazeera English, and I've been out there in Cairo many weeks since the coup happened last year, and we've covered everything from environmental pollution, to whether people are depressed about the situation in Egypt, to satirists on television. It's not like that's the only thing that we cover. Now, whether or not they're picking on Al Jazeera as a whole network and looking at the whole of the different channels, that may be a different situation. But this crackdown that happened 12 days ago, that was specifically on Al Jazeera English. And I would challenge anybody to say that our coverage has been just about what has been going on with the crackdown of the Muslim Brotherhood. We have aired so many other stories to do with Egypt, because that's what we do when we cover a country.
All right, Sue Turton, thanks very much for joining us here on CNN with more on the detention of 5 Al Jazeera staffers and these 3 staffers from Al Jazeera English, including, you mentioned, Mohammed Fahmy, who has worked for CNN, and I know him well personally. Thanks again for joining us from London.
You're welcome.
Now, an American